Ghost of Tsushima is a third-person action stealth game developed by Sucker Punch Productions and released on the PlayStation 4 on July 17, 2020. Sucker Punch as a studio, I have some history with. I was absolutely in love with the Sly games as a kid, and I still am to this day. But during the PS3 generation, I fell out of the Sucker Punch love with Infamous. I remember trying the demo out a long time ago and not really liking it, and honestly just wanting more Sly. So I put it down and never gave the game a second chance. That will change at some point for sure, but since then, Sucker Punch has made some headlines once again with Ghost of Tsushima, their first open world game and something totally different than Infamous or Sly. At this point, Sucker Punch is a studio that wants to do what it wants to do. They're like Naughty Dog in that way, where they only are limited by their creations, and Sony will basically say yes to whatever they want to do. For some reason though, I didn't feel like playing this when it came out. I love open world games and the game looked really cool, but there was something about it that I just didn't really seem to care about. Now with the release of the sequel around the corner, I decided now was the time to finally take a look at one of the landmark exclusive games for the PlayStation 4, and also, by extension, the PlayStation 5. This is Ghost of Tsushima. I'm not sure if my feelings will hold true after this video, but honestly, Ghost of Tsushima might be the most beautiful and alive looking world I've ever explored in a video game. One thing I love just right off the bat is the wind mechanic. I have never seen this in a game before. Usually an open world game will have some sort of minimap or compass that you'll use to find your way around, but in Tsushima, there's no HUD until you get into battle, but the wind will actually guide you to your next destination. It's very subtle, and sometimes almost too subtle, but you can follow the wind and get to your next quest or outpost to take over. It's really amazing, and the entire world moves with it too. The flowers and the grass move with it, the rain, the trees. It makes the world feel actually alive in a way that I've never really seen before in a video game. So many open worlds focus on scale and size, but I love that this world focuses on the beauty and the overall life aspects to it. I just played the Oblivion remaster and I do love how that game looks graphically, but it still feels like an open world game from 2006. Nothing in the overworld really moves except for NPCs, and sometimes you can see a slight breeze in the wind. In Tsushima, the world is constantly talking to you, and I love that. There are so many beautiful locations in the game that I can't even list them all. The art direction in the game is genuinely incredible. There's a kind of quote-unquote solidness to the world that I can't quite put my finger on. It's not like super ultra realistic, high definition detailed whatever, like when you go up close and you can look at it, but it looks amazing. It's kind of painting like in a way. The character models also look great too, but you can definitely tell the world was the main focus here. There's amazing looking weather systems too, and just such a wide variety of locations that I was never bored traveling around. All that being said, exploring the world is kind of a mixed bag. It's beautiful, like I said a million times, but the majority of the tasks that you'll do in this game are more checklisty items like you'll find in a Ubisoft game. For example, Far Cry. There's outposts to take over, fox dens that will lead you to a shrine to unlock more charm slots, hot springs to raise your health, and bamboo cutting minigames to increase your resolve. It's all fine, but nothing really all that exciting to explore. After the third or fourth fox den, I got really bored of following it to the point where I would just sometimes skip them. I can tell that getting the platinum trophy in this game would be a real grind. As a samurai, you will obviously be using a katana for the game's combat. I think for most games, when you get a katana, it will usually act like a sword of some kind without much difference in the way of using it. In Oblivion, for example, getting the Blade's katana will just act like a normal sword. No real difference in how you use it. Ghost of Tsushima, though, treats the blade with a lot of attention. Using the katana is incredibly fun, and the animations that you play when you hit things, or parry things, or dodge things, all feel fantastic and really feel like you're actually using a unique weapon like the katana. Each movement from Jin looks and feels precise and purposeful, even if you are just pressing a bunch of buttons all at once. The combat was inspired by old-school samurai films from Akira Kurosawa, and it clearly shows. Jin's animations for when he kills someone feels like it's right out of a samurai movie, and if you stand there for a few seconds, you'll really feel it. It's incredibly powerful feeling. The parry mechanic is also just so ridiculously fun that I struggled doing any of the other mechanics because I just wanted to feel like a badass samurai reposting everything in my way. You also have two different types of attacks, a normal attack and a heavy attack. The normal attack is way faster and does direct damage, but the heavy attack is usually for breaking your opponent's stance. The combat is Souls-like in a way where you have to wait for your opportunity to strike based on the enemy's attack animation. It's really a game of patience. In addition to all that, there's also a bow and arrow that you get pretty early on, which lets you attack enemies from afar. This also felt great, and the fact that there was such heavy snapping on it made using it a lot faster and more fun on a controller. It definitely felt like it was designed for you to use it in the middle of a sword battle to take out or damage additional enemies while you're waiting for the enemy to attack. In addition to that, you also gain the ability later on to use extra tools to help you out in combat, like the Karai, the sticky bomb, or the wind chimes. The Karai is a throwing knife and it's mostly used to stagger enemies, and using it is just so fun, especially when you get to strike a killing blow for them afterwards. The sticky bomb can be used to kill one enemy if you stick to them, but also stun other enemies in the area. And the wind chime can be used to distract enemies in stealth sequences. Initially I wrote these off because I was just having way too much fun with the parry mechanic, but I felt like these extra tools added to the experience of the combat rather than hindering it. I typically tend to avoid those extra items in games where you can easily take out a bunch of enemies, but in here, everything felt very properly balanced. You can't stockpile the items, and the items that are most destructive are the most limited. It all felt in service to the combat rather than a replacement, which was amazing. Stealth is obviously a massive part of Ghost of Tsushima. The whole basis for the game is you playing an honorable samurai who slowly loses this honorability after seeing the destruction of his homeland, and so he will do anything to save it, including resulting to what he feels are tactics used by criminals and cowards. That being said, it proves to be very effective, and unless you are really good at the game, you'll probably be partaking in stealth at least once or twice willingly throughout the game. Stealth isn't just a thrown-in mechanic to give the game a little bit more meat on its bones, but a genuinely fleshed-out experience that rivals even some of the best stealth games of the modern era, like Assassin's Creed, or even Metal Gear Solid 5 for that matter. Well, who am I kidding, MGS5 can't be topped, but Ghost does a really good job at it. You can go in and have an honorable duel with each Mongol and take them all down at the same time, or you can sneak around and assassinate them one by one. As you progress through though, you will level up and gain more stealth abilities that you can use, like being able to assassinate more than one person at a time, being able to hear more enemies, and running faster while crouching. It all works really well, but I can't act like this is a super innovative and fresh take on it, because it really isn't. These mechanics and the whole leveling up process to get better abilities is formulaic, but that being said, it's still really fun and works really well most of the time. My main issue with stealth is that it just feels way too punishing. There were multiple moments in my playthrough where I was taking my time, going in quietly, only to get caught after 15 minutes or so on the last handful of enemies, then die, only to have to completely restart my progress. At that point, I would usually just go in guns blazing and clear it that way. Despite my enjoyment with the combat, there are really some frustrating moments that can occur sometimes. For one, there's no way to lock on to a specific opponent, which felt odd considering you're doing one-on-one duels for the majority of the game. Because of this, there will be lots of times where you want to attack a specific person, and Jin will either go for someone else in the vicinity, or just completely miss the attacks, leading to you possibly getting hit. This can get incredibly frustrating. The animations are mostly smooth, but sometimes they can be a little bit too long or get in the way of another attack. For example, the wind stance is supposed to be used against enemies with spears, but I found that most of the time I was barely able to get a hit on them because the wind-up animation for the wind stagger attack is just way too long. By the time I either get close enough to hit or actually hit him, I have to dodge out of the way from a glowing red attack from an enemy. The final fight has you primarily using this stance as well, so it got really frustrating after a time. Sometimes the animations don't line up well while you're sneaking too. I would be about to assassinate 2 or 3 people at once, but then one of them will move slightly out of the way before I can hit them, leading to me getting caught. There were also a few times where I could sneak up behind a couple enemies thinking I could take them both down with the triangle button, but I would end up just hitting them and using a heavy attack instead. The platforming could be frustrating as well, with some wonky animations and kind of precise movements you have to do in order to like jump down a roof, for example. Speaking of which, there's a grappling hook in the game as well, and it's horribly underused. You get it about halfway through the game, and you don't really have to use it too many times throughout the main quest. The primary way of using it is to climb up rocks or ropes and swing across gaps. You can also use it when taking down Mongol camps, but it's usually only to climb up on a rope to walk across. Anyways, I wish the grappling hook was able to be used for more things. Maybe if there was a more vertical level design you could do it, or if there was some way to swing across multiple tall watchtowers or something. I don't know, maybe we'll see that in the sequel. So the combat, the stealth, and the art direction are all fantastic for the game. However, I can't say that the story is just as compelling as those other elements. So, in the story, we follow Jin Sakai, a samurai who is the sole survivor of a major battle with the Mongols. He gets away and is eventually rescued by Yuna, a thief who nurses him back to health in the hopes of using his connections as a lord of one of the major families on the Tsushima island to get her and her brother back to the mainland. Jin finds out that his uncle, Lord Shimura, is captured by the Mongols and decides to use the help of this thief and gather the remaining allies on the island to drive back the Mongols, rescue his uncle, and save the island. The story is generally uninspired, to be honest, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. In fact, it does just enough to get you to keep playing through it. Jin is an honorable blank slate of a character, in a way. He doesn't have any major personality traits or specific quirks to him that make him super memorable per se, although I have to admit that he is just such a cool character. His VO is very monotone in most cases, and he plays the typical honorable samurai who does everything in his power to abide by that set of codes that his uncle bestows upon him early on as a child. When he was a child, his father was killed in front of him, and his father was even begging him to help, but he stood around and did nothing. This is the motivation that drives his character. Jin, though, really doesn't start to get more interesting until the latter half of Act 2 and Act 3, in which he starts to fully lose his grasp on the samurai way and becomes the ghost. You can tell he struggles with this sense of forgetting everything he knows about how he grew up in favor of doing anything at whatever cost to protect his homeland. I just wish that more of this dilemma showed up during the main events of the story, as it would highlight the overall themes a lot better. He also wrestles with the fact that his uncle is kind of like his father at this point, and that causes some drama later on because of his ghost moniker. Shimura is a man driven purely by honor and the code of the samurai, so when he sees his, so to speak, son using tactics to which he deems cowardly, he starts to resent Jin and grows increasingly frustrated with him. I like this dynamic. It creates a lot of drama between the two of them, and because of their relationship as a family, it gets heightened even more so. Their relationship is really the glue that holds the story together. Without this, the story would be far less interesting. In fact, the game reminds me a lot of Last of Us Part 2, and Jin's story almost parallels Ellie's in that game. With how Ellie is on a quest driven purely by revenge, she slowly starts to lose any honor or integrity she may have in the hopes of getting this revenge. Jin also sinks to what his uncle perceives as low levels in order to rescue his people. While Jin isn't getting revenge exactly in the same way that Ellie is, I found the similarities to be kinda interesting. The games also came out within a month of each other too, which is funny. My issue with the story is that the excellent moments that are in the game, which there are some excellent moments, they're kind of few and far between, really. There will be an amazing cutscene that develops the characters or advances the plot in an interesting way, and then there will be nothing for 3 missions in a row. Reminds me a lot of Final Fantasy XVI, actually. I have to wonder if the story would have been better if the game was just linear. Ghost of Tsushima is one of the PlayStation 4's best console exclusives and proves that Sucker Punch is one of the main studios in Sony's roster that still got it all these years later. It has a beautiful, expansive map with one of the most alive-feeling worlds I've ever seen in a video game, an amazing combat system that's simple but addicting, and a great stealth system that rivals some of the genre's best. While the story is overall basic, it keeps it interesting with some incredibly memorable moments and a sense of scale that I haven't played before in a AAA game. Despite some frustrating moments with the combat and a checklist-style open world, I still really enjoyed my time in Tsushima. I have to give Ghost of Tsushima a 4 out of 5.